The law of trade-off states you have to give up in order to grow up. Luke 9:23 says, "And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me." People will cling to an unsatisfactory way of life rather than change in order to get something better for fear of getting something that's worse. When you go to evaluate someone's success, you need to calculate what they gave up into the equation of what they have now. There's always a trade-off. When you're first starting out in your career, it's not very hard to give up, to grow up. In fact, you're willing to give up everything for an opportunity because your everything isn't really much of anything. But what about when you've started to earn some things? A job you enjoy, a good salary, a home, a community you've been part of, a great level of security that you have. Are you willing to give up those things for a chance of doing something that would take you closer to your potential? I think because people subconsciously have a low self-image, even though they seem happy on the outside, they limit what they think they can accomplish in life. When they get to the point where they're satisfied with their income, their role in ministry, or in their spiritual disciplines, even though most likely they complain about some of that, their risk versus reward thinking in their head tells them if they lose what they have, they will never get it back. Then they create a life around their situation and never give it a second thought that they settled in life. They calm themselves into believing that this is actually living the good life. I strongly disagree with that mindset. I'd rather keep sacrificing until I work to develop the life and ministry that I plan to live, rather than life and ministry that most accept. If you want to grow up to your potential, you must be willing to give up some things that you value now. There's a few truths about trade-offs. Trade-offs are available to us throughout life. Everybody makes trades throughout life, whether they know it or not. The question is, are you going to make good ones or bad ones? In general, I believe that unsuccessful people make bad trade-offs. Average people make few trade-offs, but successful people make good trade-offs. We must learn to see trade-offs as opportunities for growth. Nothing creates a greater gap between successful people and unsuccessful people than the choices that we make. Too often, people make life more difficult for themselves because they make bad choices at intersections of their life, or they decline to make choices because of fear. But it's important to remember that while we don't always get what we want, we always get what we choose. Whenever you face an opportunity for a trade-off, ask yourself these two questions. What are the pluses and the minuses of this trade-off? Anytime you react to one of life's crossroads according to fear, rather than looking at its merits, you close yourself off from a potential opportunity. And then we need to ask, will I go through this change or grow through this change? Positive trade-offs should be seen as opportunities for growth, and they should be seized. After all, we become better as a result of them. We grow through change. We become better. We take control of our attitudes, control of our emotions. We become positive change agents in our own lives. While others might see themselves as victims, I would not. While others leave their future in someone else's hands, I will not. While others simply go through life, I'm going to grow through life. That is my choice, and I will surrender it to no one else. Trade-offs force us to make difficult personal changes. Often I hear people expressing the hope that things will change. Those moments I want to tell them that the difference between where we are and where we want to be is created by the changes we are willing to make in our lives. When you want something you have never had, you must do something you've never done to get it. Otherwise, you keep getting the same results. Change may not always be easy, but it can always be done. People tend to not give up to go up because of their personal belief level. They think, well, I give up what I love to do because my situation isn't really going to change. They also tell themselves that they work hard, and because of that, they deserve to do what they want, when they want, even if they can't afford it. The loss of a trade-off is usually felt long before the gain. You know, we want change, but we don't want to wait for the result. And often we become acutely aware of what we have lost in the trade because we feel that immediately, while we often don't reap the benefit of the trade until days, weeks, months, years, or even decades later. You know, most trade-offs can be made at any time. We can give up bad habits to acquire good ones anytime we have the willpower to make that decision. After you make a bad trade-off, people often panic, feeling they have blown it and can never recover, but seldom is that true. Most of the time, we can make choices that will help us to come back. So when it comes to choices, never say never. Another idea for a few trade-offs, they only come once in a lifetime. The cycle of change gives us windows of opportunity in which to make decisions. Sometimes that cycle only comes around one time. Miss it and the opportunity is gone. Because the average person doesn't intentionally grow, they miss many opportunities that come their way. The problem with this is some of the opportunities will only come once in a lifetime. Many times people don't realize this until it's too late. The person who intentionally grows daily will see opportunities all the time. And the person who doesn't wonders why they can never catch a break. They just aren't capable of seeing the breaks and seeing the opportunities that come only once in a lifetime. You know, the higher you climb, the tougher the trade-offs. When you're starting out in life, you have little to give up. But as you climb and accumulate some of the good things in life, the trade-offs demand a much higher price. Each success only buys an admission ticket to a more difficult problem. When we're at the bottom, we make trade-offs because of desperation. We're highly motivated to change. As we climb, we change because of inspiration, not desperation. At this higher level, we don't have to anymore. We get comfortable, and as a result, we don't make the trade-offs. One of our dangers of success is that it can make a person unteachable. Many people are tempted to use their success as permission to discontinue growth. They become convinced that they know enough to succeed, and they begin to coast on that experience. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. You give part of your life to receive something back. That may not be easy, but it's essential. If you keep climbing higher and closer towards your dream, isn't it worth the higher trade-offs that need to be made? This drives the successful person, while the average person struggles to internalize the fact that they must trade off even more to continue the journey. You know, trade-offs never leave us the same. Don't fear failure so much that you refuse to try new things. The saddest summary of life contains 3 descriptions: could have, might have, and should have. You know, we're never the same after we make a choice. You know, some trade-offs are never worth the price. Not everything in life is on the trading block. I'm not willing to trade my marriage for my career. I'm not willing to trade my relationship with my children for fame and fortune. I'm not willing to trade away my values for anything or anyone. These kind of trade-offs only lead to great regret, and they're difficult to recover from. I believe that the most people make these kind of devastating trade-offs and don't realize they're making them until it's too late. You know, we have all known people who have gotten divorced, gone through personal bankruptcy, put their health in jeopardy, and even lost their home to foreclosure because they focused solely on reaching their dreams. In the process, they failed to keep this balance in their life because they were so focused on the concept of being successful and what that would do for them. In most cases, when people compromise their values for success, they very rarely ever get what they expect for the trade-off, and they regret their actions after the fact. There's some trade-offs that are worth making. Number one is I'm willing to give up financial security today for potential tomorrow. There's no future in any job. The future lies in the person who holds the job. I've made several major ministry moves in my lifetime. You know, most of the time it took a pay cut to do so. But I value the opportunity over the security. The only job or ministry security we have is our individual commitment to personal development. That's a trade-off that always brings a payoff. Another one, I'm willing to give up immediate gratification for personal growth. There are no shortcuts to any place worth going. Instant gratification and personal growth are incompatible. When it comes to growth and success, immediate gratification is almost always the enemy of growth. We can choose to please ourselves and plateau, or we can delay our gratification and grow. It's our choice. And I'm willing to give up the fast life for the good life. We live in a culture that idolizes the hopes of someday getting the chance to live the fast life. It so admires and emulates. But most of that is just an illusion. It's like the airbrushed image of a model on the front of a magazine. It's not real. I'm willing to give up security for significance. I don't think it's wise to measure progress according to security. I think it's wiser to measure it by significance. And that requires growth. You'll never get anywhere interesting by always doing the safe thing. The great people of history were not great because of what they earned and owned, but rather for what they gave their lives to accomplish. The average person has been trained by their environment to work for security because significance is an unrealistic concept for the average person to achieve. They cherish security so much and get into a complacent comfort zone that they can internalize giving up what they have for the chance for something better. In most cases, the term significance isn't even in their vocabulary. I'm also willing to give up addition for multiplication. Most people try to take too many things with them as they journey through life. They want to keep adding without giving anything up. It doesn't work. You can't do everything. There's only so much time in a day. At some point, you reach your limit. Besides, we need to always remember that if nothing changes, nothing changes. Surrender one to take two. Don't make two moves at once. Move up, not down. And when you reach the top, you have the freedom to move as you like. If you want to reach your potential, be ready to make some trade-offs. We need to be willing to give up so we can continue to grow up.